Welcome to Unsung Heroes Live. Life's biggest questions are answered through intimate conversations with people just like you who've risen above life's challenges and desire to share their knowledge to help others. I am your host, Christy Knights. So welcome to Unsung Heroes Live podcast. Today, I have a beautiful friend joining me, and I am so excited for you to get to know Joni and the work that she's doing, as well as her rise from a place that may have been a struggle or a difficulty that you can relate to an incredible leader within our community. So let me share with you a little bit about Joni Sturgill, and we will just get to know her. So since 2004, Joni has been teaching stress reduction in the Pittsburgh area using mindfulness, meditation, relaxation, and yoga. She earned the designation of ERYT 500 as a Master of Science and Counseling Psychology, and also studied at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Through her business, Healthy Body, Peaceful Soul, I love that name, she shares insights on mental, emotional, and physical wellness to incorporate populations, and wellness to corporate populations. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. Cancer patients, educators, students, and her training programs, and other various groups and individuals. Joni can be reached via her website, which is www.healthybodypeacefulsoul.com. Joni, we welcome you. Welcome to the Unsung Heroes podcast.
Thanks for having me, Christy.
Absolutely. So, Joni, what a great repertoire of skills that you have. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey and what led you to discover your purpose?
Absolutely. What really led me to doing everything that I do was my own personal journey and experience, particularly with anxiety. As a young woman, I was very anxious. I felt like I was very stuck in my head all the time with worry and apprehension and fear, and felt so overwhelmed to the point that I didn't feel like I was living my own life. I was just constantly in this state of being triggered all of the time. And a good friend of mine said, Joni, why don't you try yoga? I think it might help you. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a try. And really from my first yoga class, I started to feel more relaxed. I started to feel more in my body instead of in my head so much. Yes. And from there, I learned more about meditation and mindfulness. And over a period of years, I feel like I became mentally and emotionally stronger and more resilient to the stress factors in my life. And over time, it's really helped me personally so much, particularly the practice of mindfulness, move through a whole lot of life-changing events, hurdles, including a divorce, and whatever life throws my way. I feel like these tools that I've gathered over the years have really helped me cope.
That is great. You know, yoga, not many people know about the depth of healing that really can occur through yoga. So at the time, what were some of your symptoms of anxiety that you were struggling with?
So when I was in my 20s, I would really have full-blown panic attacks. I remember feeling pain in my chest, shortness of breath, even getting so anxious that I would shake. I remember feeling shaky and feeling so overwhelmed with life, feeling like I didn't know what direction I was supposed to go in. So I feel like I was living life based on what everyone else expected of me. And I wasn't able to figure out what I needed or what I wanted, because every time I would look inside, I had that tension, that tightness, that fear that was present, that was so overwhelming. So I would avoid looking inside for the longest time.
Yes. I think that is so common, especially, for women as we fill multiple roles, is that tension and knowing what to do and how to proceed that resonates with us, right? So what were some of the ways that you coped with the panic attacks and the stress outside of yoga?
So the first technique that I really learned that was valuable for me was a deep breathing technique. And it's still today a technique that I share with everyone that I know, and I'd like to share today. because it was the one thing that when I would start to have that tightness in my chest, when I would start to feel short of breath, I taught myself to remember, okay, I have this tool, I have this technique, and this technique can help me kind of step out of the rapids of my emotions, so to speak, and stand on stable ground and feel like I could still, recognize that emotion that I was having, but I wasn't going to drown in it. And that deep breathing technique is the 4-8 breath. It's inhaling to a count of 4, really deep, full inhale, and exhaling to a count of 8. So your exhale is really slow. And that breathing technique was something that I practiced all the time. I remember practicing it. One situation that would trigger me that I think is a trigger for a lot of people is sitting in traffic.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I remember at that time when I was in my 20s, I worked in marketing and I had a job downtown, and I would sit in traffic and I would just feel that anxiety level skyrocket. I always felt like a cartoon character, where the red kind of rises up your face, deep out your ears. And this was a place that I would practice that 4-8 breathing. I would feel myself start to get to be a basket case. And I would start to inhale to that count of 4, exhale to that count of 8, slow down my breathing, and it works. It really is effective. I always say the hardest part about it is just remembering to use it, being able to pull yourself out of that moment and say, I always say it's like having this little voice on your shoulder saying, you have a tool that you can use to help you in this situation. Now's the time to use it.
Absolutely. Working with clients, I find that if I just explain to them, you've got this great tool, hey, we've got this book, we're using this book, go use it. They don't. Instead, they hesitate. And what I found most useful, and you can share this if you do too, is actually doing it with them.
Yes.
In the office, being able to say, okay, we're going to do this right now. I want you to experience this in my space, right? They practice it in your space, and it's almost as if it gives them permission to do it outside of it.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. That's so true. I definitely have people sit and practice whenever I work with them because exactly for the reasons that you said. Once they can embody it and they understand it, whatever the tool or technique is, I think it creates that little light bulb of awareness that then they'll be able to recall it in the future.
Yes. In the past for you, what were some of the negative self-talk that you had to really work through to use your skills?
Oh my gosh. I think, again, I think like most women have, we put so much pressure on ourselves. I feel like to do everything perfectly and to be caretakers of everyone. And I think the negative self-talk that I really struggled with was that I could never do enough.
Yes. It's so common for all of us. Yeah.
I know, right? And I just remember feeling like, okay, well, I'm working hard to do this, but it's not enough. It's not good enough. And that was the message that I remember saying to myself over and over again, that whatever I would do, it wasn't good enough until I finally, through so many things that I read, through so many trainings that I did, through so many teachers and coaches that I worked with, I really started to realize, you know what? If I am doing my best in the world, knowing that my best is going to vary from day to day, that is enough. If I'm putting myself out there and I'm doing my best, that is enough. And that really is when I think the story in my head started to change. And that's when my life started to change too.
Okay, great. In what ways did you see those changes occur for you, Joni?
Well, I think the biggest change was having more clarity about who I was and what my purpose was in the world, what I feel that I'm here to do. And that's, to help people, to help to be a loving presence in the world, to be a compassionate presence in the world, and to help people heal in as many ways as possible. And of course, that had to start with me doing that for myself and offering that for myself. And having that clarity made me have to make some difficult choices in my life and find a path that isn't necessarily the easiest path, but the one that I felt that I had to go on. And that included moving through a divorce and all of the struggles that come with that. The mental, emotional, physical, financial struggles that come from that, and moving through a situation like that. And then getting to a place where I feel like I'm, independent and on my feet, and having a true sense of myself and the direction that I'm meant to be on and be in. I think I really attribute that to all these practices that I've learned over the years and that I offer to others, is it's helped me find my purpose and move consistently in that direction. Of course, consistently in that direction, we all have our ups and downs, and it's about just riding those waves, and going over those little speed bumps that life presents to us. But again, if you have the tools and you keep calling on them again and again, you can make it over those speed bumps.
Yes. I was just looking on Instagram earlier this morning, and I saw that the iceberg analysis, right, of an entrepreneur is that oftentimes people are seeing all the greatness, but they didn't see what it took to get there. And I'm hearing a glimpse into your story, and so many people feel like we just woke up and we're here. We just woke up and we're experts. But what has been the biggest contributor to becoming an expert in caring for yourself?
I feel like the biggest contributor is really developing a sense of acceptance.
Yes.
Acceptance of the present moment and acceptance of change. Change is such a huge issue for so many people, because if things are going well in our life, we don't think they're ever going to change. And if things are not going so well, if we're in really challenging circumstances, I think that people can feel stuck because they feel like this is never going to change. I'm going to be in this low place forever. And I think acknowledging and accepting the fact that we live in an ever-changing world and an ever-changing environment.
Absolutely.
I always look toward the seasons and look at, the seasons are always changing. If you look at nature, if you look at trees, and, right now they're bare, but soon there'll be new growth on those trees, and then they'll grow, and then the leaves will brown and wither and die and fall, and it will just happen again. And it's this cycle. And if we remind ourselves of that, I think it can help us. And I know it's helped me cope with changes in life, kind of just really practicing mindfulness in the definition of being present with whatever is and accepting it. Accepting it doesn't mean being complacent, but just being at peace with wherever you are. Even if wherever you are is a challenging spot, being able to look at it and say, okay, this is a really rough time right now, but knowing that it's going to change and still taking steps toward helping that change happen, but knowing that it's going to change because everything changes.
Absolutely.
So that's the biggest piece, I feel like, accepting that and embodying that we've just got to learn to ride these waves in life. I think that has helped me the most get to where I am today, that it isn't going to be, a bright, perky, sunny day every day. and just to acknowledge that and accept that and say, okay, I'm going to do the best I can today, even if my best today is here, and maybe on a good day, my best is up here, and accepting that change.
Great. So share with us, what are some of the common myths that you ran into dealing with your own anxiety?
Common myths. I think, there was one point in time in my life where, I don't know. I think that there are expectations around that we shouldn't feel allowed to have a bad day, and I think that I experienced that myself. And for a while, I put that pressure on myself, especially as I started doing the work that I do. I feel like, well, I'm teaching all these mindfulness practices and positive psychology, and I shouldn't be sad today.
Yeah, I struggle with the same thing. Like, why can't you get out of bed today? This is ridiculous. You teach people every day, get out of bed, right?
I know, right? And and that is the myth. I think the myth is that, if you practice mindfulness, if you have all the tools, if you are practicing doing all the quote unquote right things, that you're never going to have a bad day. And that's simply not the case, and it is okay to have a bad day. It is okay to cry, it is okay to experience that gamut of emotions. And, I think that's the biggest myth, is that once you start practicing mindfulness or meditation or yoga, that you're going to be in this peaceful, blissful Zen space all the time. And, maybe if you choose like a monastic path, maybe that's more accessible to you. But, if you're living as a householder, meaning, you have kids and you have like a life and you're out engaging with people in the world, you're going to have ups and downs, and that's okay. That's okay. That's not a sign that you're failing.
Yes. Giving yourself permission to have those not okay days allows learning, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All of it is a learning experience if we let it be.
Yes. Yes. So how powerful for you has been a support system?
I think a support system is really important, both having close friends that are supportive and, people that you can talk to on those bad days, on those rough days, and that they're not going to be judgmental. I think that it's also important to have therapists and coaches and teachers that are always there helping to guide you in the right direction, because we all need that. We all need to be reminded, even those of us who are doing this work in the world. I know I certainly appreciate any time one of my teachers is around, if I can take a class from them and hear their words. It just refreshes everything for me and helps keep me on the path that I want to be on. That's a really crucial piece.
Yes. I think so many times, you mentioned your divorce, so many times people see the stigma of divorce, especially for, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say especially for women, but I don't think that's always true. I think there's stigma around divorce in general. But for you, what was that self-talk like as you moved through the divorce process? I know for myself, it was really tough. It was a challenge to say, I'm going to make a choice to end my marriage because I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be healthy emotionally. There wasn't infidelity. There wasn't those big ends to a marriage for me, but it truly was my need to have joy in my life. So can you speak to that for you?
Absolutely. Christy, mine was the same circumstance. I felt with such a strong feel. Well, I wasn't getting those things. I wasn't getting what I needed in the marriage. Yes. And after working on it for a number of years, I too made that really challenging decision. And, there is a stigma around it. There is a stigma around it because, I remember getting questions from friends and family who saw the outside picture and they would say, oh, but everything seemed okay.
Yes.
And, what I kept telling myself was, and what I had been working on for years is, again, how to find myself and my own inner voice and my own inner intuition and direction. And I felt so strongly that's what I needed to do. That was the only choice that I could make. And so I really worked hard to try to place aside those stigmas and that those voices that I heard from the outside, because I knew I was doing what was right for me and ultimately what was right for the whole family in the end. I think everyone is happier now. In the end, I really think that it was the right choice. And I felt that with such a strong conviction. It is challenging to silence all the external noise that you hear in a circumstance like that. But again, I feel like it's so important to return again and again to your own instincts, your own intuition, and to have that clarity. And again, I worked on developing that clarity for so many years to get me to that place, to be able to recognize what needed to be done.
Yes, yes. So talk to us about your business and how you began to develop your business.
So just like you said earlier, I feel like sometimes people look at my business and they say, oh, wow, look what she's done. And it really did not happen overnight.
Yes.
When I started teaching yoga in 2004, I was just teaching a few classes a week. I little by little would start to get some private clients. I was always interested in nutrition and health and wellness. And so I decided to get some more formal training at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Things slowly started to expand from there. And then I started to get some corporate positions offering yoga and meditation in corporations, which I really enjoyed because it's a population that needs it, stressed out executives, stressed out employees, and to give them just a few tools that are really simple and brief to use that they can use throughout the workday. I felt that was very impactful. And again, things just slowly expanded over time. I just completed my master's in counseling psychology in 2015.
Great.
And I, instead of going the traditional counseling route, which I had initially intended to do, I just started getting more and more opportunities to teach mindfulness and teach yoga and do more coaching work. And so I just ended up going in that direction. And in networking with people that I know and people that I've worked with in the past, things have just grown. And my most recent project is Mindfulness in the Schools in North Allegheny School District.
I love it. I was so excited when I saw that online. I was like, are you kidding me? This is awesome.
I was so thrilled. And, the district is really fantastic because prior to the year that I reached out to them, they had done a school environmental climate survey, reaching out to kids and to their faculty to assess stress levels. And they had found that so many students as well as so many staff members were experiencing toxic levels of stress. And it's detrimental to learning. It's detrimental for a work environment. And they really wanted to be proactive about how can we address this? It was a really serious, something that they were really serious about. And so when I got in touch with them and was talking about mindfulness, they said, you know what, we really feel like this is a great program. So I developed this program with North Allegheny in mind based on the conversations I had with the superintendents. And it's a great program because it works from the top down. I'm training the two superintendents as well as a handful of school counselors and teachers to learn mindfulness practices themselves. And then that was last semester. And then this semester, I'm working with them to actually teach kids and how to teach these practices to kids depending on their age and developmental stage and all of that. But again, it's a great program because I think in order for mindfulness programs to work, it really has to be a top-down method. I've had so many parents reach out to me recently saying, oh, can you teach mindfulness to my kid? Because my kid is really stressed. And I say, sure, after I have about 6 sessions with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because if as a parent, you don't know how to manage your stress, they're learning that from you. If you're able to model stress management techniques, whatever they might be. But if you're able to model that and they see you coping with your own stress, they're going to learn so much more from that than they are if I would sit down with them and tell them how to breathe or give them a technique to do. So that's another piece, is that I'm starting to work with parents in different ways to help them create a more peaceful environment in the home, and so that everyone can be more centered and move through struggles and issues, with a little more calm and clarity.
I absolutely love that. As a clinician in private practice, when I work with teens, it often can be very frustrating whenever you do the work in the session, they do the work, they're trying to practice their hard work in the home, and it becomes unraveled due to just the lack of knowledge from parents. And oftentimes they'll come back to me and say, how can I help my teen? So the thought of, you saying, I would love to help you, but you have to come see me first, I think is powerful, right? I think that's an amazing decision on your part as a business.
Yeah. I mean, and I tell them, I say, if you've heard about my mindfulness program in the schools, which is how so many are reaching out to me, I'm like, I'm teaching the superintendents how to mindfulness, and they understand the importance of it. They're getting it. If I'm teaching your child's teachers and your child's administrators how to practice, you need to learn too.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is so powerful. Can you share, just from your experience, and you do have a master's in counseling, what are the benefits of mindfulness for anxiety in teens? You said stress, but let's talk about anxiety a little bit.
Absolutely. So mindfulness practices, there's such a growing body of research around mindfulness practices, which I love. And so much of it is around monitoring the nervous system and our stress response to things. When we're stressed, our sympathetic nervous system is engaged. When we're having anxiety, the sympathetic nervous system, and that's our fight or flight. So I think teens in particular, adolescents and teens, they get triggered and they stay in that place of fight or flight, or what they call it, freeze, fight or flight now. So they're constantly in a place where they feel like perhaps they're being attacked, and that's what their nervous system is telling them. That's what their brain is telling them. And mindfulness practices, deep breathing practices, what they're showing is that they can really help get you out of your sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, and into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest part of your nervous system. And, I love talking about the science behind mindfulness, but, and I'm sure all of this, Christy, but for the listeners, the vagus nerve is this major cranial nerve. That really they're finding the tone of this vagus nerve, which it runs from the brain all the way down, and it branches off to all the major systems of the body, and it impacts all the major systems of the body. And how we deal with stress is in part due to the tone of this vagus nerve. And while we might just have an inherent tone, either high vagal tone, they call it, or low vagal tone, it's something that we can change. It's something that we can impact by breathing exercises, by mindfulness practices. And the higher your vagal tone, the more resilient you are to stress. And because we're never going to remove stress. So it is important that teens learn how to manage their stress. And what that looks like, I always say, we're always going to have a stressful event, but we want to recover from that stressful event quickly. Instead of what happens sometimes is we have a stressful event and then we stay there. We stay at that high level of anxiety. And, if your vagus nerve is toned, again, if you're doing practices regularly, you have a stressful event or you have a moment of anxiety, but you recover more quickly. So for teens who have panic attacks, for instance, if they can start to recognize when they're on the upward swing of a panic attack, if they can start to recognize that and then teach themselves to recover more quickly, they're overall going to feel better in time. They're going to have less and less anxiety. But I think, giving them tools and teaching them, I always tell people it's important to practice when you're not feeling so anxious.
Yes.
Then when you are really anxious, it's easier for you to call on these tools that you have.
Right.
But also it's like conditioning your nervous system, just like we condition our bodies when we exercise. You know, if you're practicing deep breathing, if you're practicing mindfulness techniques regularly, you're conditioning your nervous system, you're conditioning that vagus nerve to be more resilient. So over time, your anxiety is going to lessen. Mm-hmm. And I think teaching kids that that they have that they have some control, that they have some control over themselves. And that's really, I think, teaching adolescents that, teaching teens that, but my goodness, teaching adults that as well. Mm-hmm. The only thing we have control over is ourselves and how we respond and react to things in the world. Doesn't mean it's easy.
Right.
But it is the one thing that we can practice having control over.
Yes, absolutely. So share with our listeners how they can reach out to you in order to have your services, in order to receive your services.
Yeah. So they can find me on my website, which is www.healthybodypeacefulsoul.com. They can also reach me at Jonis Sturgill. My name is JONISTURGILL @gmail.com. And those are probably the two best ways to reach me, either through my website or via email. And I teach yoga classes. I offer private sessions in yoga and mindfulness. I have a program called UnStuck. It's about finding your purpose and living your purpose. And I also do nutrition consulting as well. So, and Christy, I wanted to offer your listeners, if they, I'm going to offer a 10% discount on my UnStuck program. That I have, and that's getting unstuck, finding and living your purpose. And so if they send me an email or contact me through my website and just say that they heard me on your podcast, I'm going to give them a 10% discount on those services.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I think that'll be so useful for many people. So really, they need to head over there to sign up for that program. So if you were to write a thank you note, who would it be to, and what would you say?
Oh, wow. I have a big list in my head.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
A thank you note. Honestly, I would want to write thank you notes to all my teachers, my teachers of mindfulness and meditation. I think I've been lucky to study with a teacher called named Max Strom, and he had a significant impact on me. I was lucky to do a mindfulness meditation training with Pema Chodron. She's had a tremendous, impact on me. My family has been so supportive of me. My mother, my kids, honestly, my two boys, I feel like they've been my greatest teachers, in so many ways. Yeah. Our children can be a mirror for us.
On good days and bad days. Absolutely.
And bad days. So yeah, I'm blessed. I feel blessed that I've had so many people who I feel like have supported me on this journey and taught me so much.
Yes. What has kept you moving forward and not giving up, Joni?
I think what's kept me moving forward and not ever giving up is I feel so strongly about what I do. I feel that this is my purpose in life. So I feel like, yes, this is my work that sustains me. But this is also something I just feel so passionate about. And I think it's because of my own struggles that I've been through and been able to overcome and move through. And in different periods throughout my life, especially as a woman, experiencing so many different relationships and things that have both made my confidence plummet, and then how I've overcome that. It's what I live. It's what I try to live. And so I feel blessed that I'm able to do what I live and feel so passionately about. Yeah,
that is awesome. So what words of wisdom would you impart to our listeners?
Words of wisdom. I would really say words of wisdom. I really want to suggest that people get outside and be in nature. No matter what the weather is, like step outside, especially if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, to take a few minutes to step outside, feel the temperature of the air, connect with nature in some way, because I feel like nature can be such a great teacher for us if we can connect, if we can step outside and be present, even if it's, frigid temperatures and falling snow, even if it's rain. We don't have to just step outside when the skies are blue and revel in the sun, but be present with that. And I really feel like if you're connecting with nature, it can be a great tool to help get you out of your head and a little bit unstuck from wherever you feel stuck.
Yes, I absolutely love it. I think whenever we attempt to be mindful and we struggle with it, the best thing to do is to step outside and feel the elements and be in that space. So I think it's so powerful. Well, Joni, thank you so much for joining us at Unsung Heroes podcast. It has been a blessing. And for those listeners, remember, you can reach Joni at www.healthybodypeacefulsoul and receive 10% off the Unstuck package. Do not delay. Reach out to Joni today to live that happy, healthy life that you're striving for. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joni.
Thank you, Christy, for having me.
Thank you for joining this episode of Unsung Heroes Live. Each week, we highlight a hero that has created a life of joy and peace despite the challenges. Through their transparency, life's biggest questions are answered. For additional resources and community support, go to www.christyknights.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Christy Knights. Be real, be raw, just be the hero that you are.